What's up, you guys? Welcome to day 18 of May 2020 LeetCode Daily Challenge. Today's question is permutation in string. So, given two strings S1 and S2, write a function to return true if S2 contains the permutations of S1. In other words, one of the first string's permutation is the substring of second string. So let's look at an example here. S1 is AB, so its permutation would be AB or BA, and we can clearly see BA exists here, so hence we return true. And for example 2, BA or AB, in this string we scan through and it does not exist. So the idea here is to be able to have a sort of a window which would be of the size of string S1, and we scan through the strings. So given AB as S1 and similarly this, so I have it here, AB. If we check through all the indices here, we can see that in order to represent AB, we can have an array of 26, since it clearly says that the input string contains only lower characters. So AB would be represented in a 26. Essentially, we're vectorizing here, and what happens is A would be represented by index 1, B would be represented by index 2. So the number of times A occurs in S1 is 1, so we increment it by 1, and similarly B we increment it by 1, which is represented by index 2. Now for string this would essentially be represented as A would be 1. Let's look at how we're going to actually solve this instead of doing it that way. So we're going to first have a sliding window approach here. The window size would be of size of S1. That would be our sliding window size. And if you see here, the first two characters are E and I. So E and I would be represented as in vectorization form would be so E would be 5, 1, and D would be 4. Now we're going to check against, there will be 1 which is 0, 2 which is 0, and so on. And let's bring 4 here. And similarly, the rest of them, which would be 0. So 26, 0, and let me write 26, 0 here as well. And we're going to compare these two vectorized forms, and we can clearly see they're not equal. So we will decrement these values back as we slide further. So we will check against E and D. So the value for E here is I and D. So we can keep on incrementing the window and keep on checking. So once we'll reach this index here, our array would essentially look something like 1, 1, and the rest of the values would be 0. So this vector form and this vector form, they're going to be the same. That means our arrays, that means we've basically found a permutation of S1 in S2. If we find something like this, that is when these when we find a permutation of S1 in S2, we're going to be returning true. So let's just code it up quickly. So first thing that we're going to check for is S1 length is greater than S2 length. If that's the case, it can't exist because they cannot be a permutation of S1 and S2, because the minimum size of for the permutation of S1 to exist in S2 has to be S1's length should be equal to S2. If it's not true, we will simply return false. Right, next we will store for now n inside n s1 dot length. This will be the size of a sliding window n. Now we will require two or let's call it vector for S1 vectors. So we have two vectors of size 26. S2 vector would be size 26 again, and what we would be doing here is first we're going to try and fill up vector S1. So vector S1 or simply n. So while we're filling up vector S1, we can similarly at the same time fill up vector S2. So let's look at that. First thing, let's quickly understand what happens here. So we're filling up S1 vector. Character at I minus a will give us a 0 based index for the given character, because we're essentially subtracting the ASCII value of a from whatever the character is here. So if it's a, it'll be 0. If it's b, it'll be 1. Now similarly for S2, we will do the same. Now another loop where our sliding window approach is going to begin. So we're starting this loop with I is equal to n because we already have all the values up to n, the value of n, which is size of S1, already filled in to this vector. So once we're doing this, what we're going to be checking for is I is less than S2 dot length. Now over here we will look for if arrays dot equal, as I explained before, we will have to check if the values of the two vectors is equal. If it's true, that means we've found a permutation and we're going to be returning a true. So S1 vector compared to S2 vector. So if that is true, we return true. Next, what we're going to do is S2 vector so character at I. Now here is where if this is not true, we're going to fall here, and we will basically take char at I. Again the same thing, we will increment the value of character at I, and at the same time we will also decrement the value at I minus n. What this will basically do is we're sliding one by one, character by character by character. So the previous, since we've moved along, so say we're at n. So we've basically moved by one character to the right, and once we've moved one character to the right, we have to reinstate the value of whatever the character's value was at I minus n. So we do that through this line here. So if that's it, I mean, we're done here. But for the last we're going to lastly once again check for equal. I mean, basically this line again here. So this will make sure that this makes sure for the last character, I mean, if we've reached s2.length, we've done this logic, it'll check for that, and if n's value, s2's length was equal to the value of s1, we would never enter this the second for loop, and we would directly fall to this line. So it checks for both of these conditions, and basically that's the logic behind it. If we run this, we can quickly see, right, there's a new keyword that is missing here and here as well. Okay, typo, quickly just fix that. Length, any other typos? Arrays dot equals equals. So run this. Awesome, so we're getting true as expected. Now I have a little optimization as well for this scenario. Since we are dealing with we have to essentially immediately return true. So what we can do is we can optimize the space by removing this, and here we're going to only be dealing with s1's vector. So essentially what we are doing here is we're adding the value here, but we're decrementing at the same time if we encounter that value in s2. So we move on further here. Now instead of checking for equals, we're going to be checking for zeros. So how do we do that? Public boolean check for zeros, and in for int I in ARR if I not equal to 0, return false, if or otherwise return true. So this is a helper function which will check if all the values in a given array are zeros. If that's true, it will return true, otherwise it will return false. So here what we're going to be checking essentially is if all the values are zero. So say vector s1 was string s1 was a b, and similarly s2 was a b. Basically s1 vector would be all the values in s1 would be 0. So we will be checking for if all the values of s1 are 0 here. check for zeros, and our vector is s1 vector, return true. So if we found a permutation, essentially we check for zeros. If s1 has become 0, we will essentially return the values of we will return true because s1 is now a 0 vector. Next, if that's not true, we fall here. So here how we're going to change this is this becomes s1, this becomes s2. Character at I, since you saw already over here, we will be decrementing the value of character at I and again incrementing back the value that we decremented previously at I minus nth index. And here we're going to check if check for zeros s1 vector return true, otherwise we'll return false. So let's quickly run this and see if that works for us. It returns true. So this way we've optimized the space requirement and hopefully the runtime as well. Not exactly the runtime, but yeah, the space requirement. Awesome, and it's accepted. Let's see where we stand. So 103 of 103 passed, and we're in roughly 81.5 percentile. Great. Thank you guys for watching this video. I would appreciate if you hit the thumbs up on the video if you liked it, and I would really appreciate as well if you could post your comments in the comment section below. You can post your feedback, or if you've got any other alternate strategies for the video, or I mean this question, which is permutation in string. And if you're not already subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. I'm at least posting one video per day. Thank you.